My mill accused me of baby trapping his son when I wasn't even pregnant. I talked to my fiancé and called off the engagement. I, 28F, recently got engaged to my boyfriend, Jake, 30M, after being together for 3 years. Our love story began at a mutual friend's birthday party back in 2021. It was a warm summer evening, and the party was in full swing when I first spotted Jake across the crowded backyard. He was laughing at something his friend said, and I was instantly drawn to his warm smile and easygoing character. We ended up in the same conversation circle a few minutes later. Jake introduced himself, and we quickly discovered we had a lot in common. We both loved hiking, traveling to off-the-beaten-path destinations, and experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen. The hours flew by as we talked, and I found myself captivated by his fun and genuine interest in getting to know me. As the party wound down, Jake asked for my number. I gave it to him. We started texting regularly over the next few days, sharing funny memes and swapping stories about our day-to-day lives. A week after the party, Jake asked me out on our first official date. He took me to this cozy Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. The ambiance was perfect. Soft lighting, intimate tables, and the aroma of fresh garlic and herbs in the air. Over plates of homemade pasta and glasses of wine, our conversation flowed effortlessly. Jake made me laugh with his terrible attempts at speaking Italian, and I felt so at ease with him, like I'd known him for years instead of days. That first date led to many more. We explored local hiking trails, tried out new restaurants, and spent lazy Sundays binge-watching our favorite shows. About 6 months in, during a weekend trip to the coast, Jake officially asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes without hesitation, and we sealed the deal with a kiss as the sun set over the ocean. As our relationship deepened, we started mixing more into each other's lives. We met each other's friends and families, supported each other through work stress and personal challenges, and created our own little traditions and inside jokes. Jake was always there for me, whether I needed a shoulder to cry on after a rough day at work or a partner in crime for a spontaneous road trip. After a year of dating, we decided to take the plunge and move in together. It was a big step, but it felt right. We found a cute apartment halfway between both our workplaces and spent weeks hunting for the perfect furniture and decor to make it our home. Living together brought its own set of challenges. We had to learn to compromise on everything from cleaning schedules to TV choices, but it also brought us closer than ever. I loved waking up next to Jake every morning and coming home to him every night. Last month, on our 3-year anniversary, Jake surprised me with a weekend getaway to the same coastal town where we had officially become a couple. As we walked along the beach at sunset, retracing the steps of that memorable day, Jake suddenly got down on one knee. He pulled out a beautiful ring and asked me to marry him. Through happy tears, I said yes. It was the easiest decision I've ever made. We're both over the moon about our engagement and excited to start planning our future together. However, there's one dark cloud hanging over our happiness. Jake's mom, Linda, 55F. From the very beginning, Linda has never seemed to approve of me, though she's always been careful not to say anything overtly negative to my face. There have been several incidents over the years that have made me feel unwelcome and disliked. The first time I met Jake's family was about 2 months into our relationship. Jake invited me over for Sunday dinner, assuring me that his parents were excited to meet me. When we arrived, his dad greeted me warmly, but Linda barely acknowledged my presence. Throughout the evening, she focused all her attention on Jake, asking him about work and his friends. Whenever I tried to join the conversation, Linda would quickly change the subject or talk over me. At one point, I complimented her on the delicious roast she had made, hoping to find some common ground. She simply replied, "Oh, this old recipe? It's nothing special," and immediately turned back to Jake to ask about his latest project at work. By the end of the night, I felt invisible and unwanted. For Jake's birthday during our first year of dating, I wanted to do something special to impress his family. I spent hours researching recipes and finally settled on baking his favorite cake, a 3-layer chocolate cake with raspberry filling. I'm not much of a baker, so it took me several attempts to get it right, but the final result looked and tasted great. I was so proud as I carried it into Jake's parents' house for the family dinner. However, as soon as I set it down, Linda made a big show of presenting the store-bought cake she had gotten. "Look, honey," she said to Jake, "I got your absolute favorite from that bakery across town. You always say nobody makes it quite like they do." She then turned to me with a tight smile and said, "Oh, did you make that? How sweet. We'll put it in the kitchen for later." My homemade cake sat untouched all evening while everyone ate Linda's store-bought one. Last Christmas, Jake and I joined his family for their annual gift exchange. I had spent weeks picking out thoughtful gifts for everyone, including Linda. When it came time to open presents, I watched as Linda handed out expensive, carefully chosen gifts to Jake's sister and her boyfriend. She gave Jake's sister a pair of designer earrings she had been eyeing, and her boyfriend received a high-end smartwatch. When it was my turn, Linda handed me a small, hastily wrapped package. Inside was a generic bath set, The kind you'd grab last minute from a drugstore. What made it worse was that it still had the clearance sticker on it, showing it had been bought for $4.99. I forced a smile and thanked her, but I could feel my cheeks burning with embarrassment. Whenever we visit Jake's parents, Linda often makes subtle digs about my career, appearance, or background. She'll say things like, "Oh, you're still at that entry-level job? I'm sure you'll move up someday. Jake was already a manager by your age." Or she'll comment on my outfit with backhanded compliments like, "That dress is certainly brave. I could never pull off something so youthful at my age, let alone yours." Once, when I mentioned growing up in a small town, she remarked, "Well, I suppose that explains some things. It must be quite an adjustment for you, living in a real city now." Perhaps the most irritating habit of Linda's is her constant mention of Jake's ex-girlfriend, Sarah. According to Linda, Sarah was the height of perfection. Beautiful, successful, and from a good family. She often brings up Sarah's accomplishments in conversation. "Did you hear Sarah just made partner at her law firm? She always was so driven." Or, "Sarah's wedding photos looked stunning. Some girls just know how to carry themselves with class." She's even accidentally called me by Sarah's name multiple times, always following up with an insincere, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you two just look so similar." We don't. Despite all of this, Jake has always stood up for me and assured me that his mom would come around eventually. He's called her out on her behavior several times, which usually results in Linda claiming she didn't mean it that way, or that I'm too sensitive. For the sake of keeping the peace and not putting Jake in an uncomfortable position, I've tried to maintain a polite, if distant, relationship with Linda. A week after our engagement, I went over to Jake's parents' house to drop off some work documents he had left at our place. Jake wasn't home from work yet, so Linda invited me in to wait for him. We made awkward small talk for a few minutes before she brought up the engagement. "Linda, so you two are really going through with this marriage thing, huh?" Me: "Yes, we're very excited about it." Linda, laughing: "Well, I guess you got what you wanted. Trapping my son with a baby on the way, very clever." I was completely shocked by her statement. I'm definitely not pregnant, and Jake and I have always been careful about birth control. We've talked about having kids someday, but not until we're both ready and financially stable. Before I could respond or ask what she meant, Jake arrived home and the conversation was cut short. I didn't want to cause drama, so I didn't mention it to Jake right away, but Linda's comment has been eating away at me all week. I'm hurt that she would think I'd trick Jake into marriage, and I'm worried that she's been spreading rumors about me to the rest of the family. I've been going back and forth about whether I should confront Linda about her comment or just try to ignore it. Part of me wants to stand up for myself and make it clear that her accusation is completely false, but another part of me is afraid of making the situation worse and creating more tension in the family. Jake has noticed that I've been quieter than usual this week, but I haven't told him about what his mom said. I don't want to put him in the middle or make him feel like he has to choose between us. At the same time, I'm worried that if I don't address this now, Linda's behavior will only get worse once we're married. I've talked to a couple of close friends about the situation. Some think I should confront Linda directly and set clear boundaries. Others advise me to let it go for now and focus on my relationship with Jake. They say that engaging with Linda will only give her more ammunition, and that the best revenge is to be happy and prove her wrong over time. I'm at a loss for what to do. I love Jake with all my heart, and I'm excited to build a life with him. But the thought of having Linda as my mother-in-law for the rest of my life, constantly undermining me and our relationship, is daunting. I don't want to start our marriage with this hanging over us, but I also don't want to rock the boat and potentially damage Jake's relationship with his family. So, Reddit, am I wrong for being upset about my future Miles' accusation? Should I confront her about it or try to take the high road? How do I navigate this situation without creating more drama or putting Jake in an impossible position? Update. After my last post, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to handle the situation with my future mother-in-law, Linda. I decided that I couldn't let her comment about baby trapping Jake go unanswered. I needed to clear the air and set the record straight, both for my own peace of mind and for the sake of my future relationship with Jake's family. I texted Linda and asked if we could meet for coffee. She agreed, though her response was rude. We met at a small cafe near her house the next day. I was nervous as I walked in, my heart pounding as I spotted her sitting at a corner table. I sat down across from her, and, after a moment of awkward silence, I decided to get straight to the point. I asked her about the comment she made about me trapping Jake with a baby. At first, Linda tried to dodge the question. She waved her hand dismissively and said she was just joking around. But I pressed on, telling her that it wasn't a funny joke and that I was hurt by the implication. That's when Linda's demeanor suddenly changed. Her face flushed red and she leaned forward, her voice low but intense. Linda said that she knew I was pregnant with Jake's baby. She accused me of using the pregnancy to force Jake into marriage. She said that if it wasn't for the baby, Jake would have chosen Sarah, his ex-girlfriend. I was completely shocked by her words. I tried to tell her that I wasn't pregnant, that there was no baby. But Linda wouldn't listen. She insisted that Jake had told her himself about the pregnancy. My mind was reeling. I couldn't understand why Jake would have told his mother such a huge lie. I left the cafe in a daze, barely remembering to say goodbye to Linda. I walked home, my thoughts in turmoil. When I got to our apartment, I found Jake in the living room. One look at my face, and he knew something was wrong. I told him everything that had happened with his mother. Jake's face fell as I recounted the conversation. He sat down heavily on the couch and put his head in his hands. Then slowly, he started to explain. Jake told me that his mother had been pressuring him for months to break up with me and get back together with Sarah. Linda had always seen Sarah as the perfect match for Jake. From a wealthy family, with a prestigious career, and the kind of daughter-in-law she had always wanted. When Jake told his mother about our engagement, she was furious. She threatened to disown him if he didn't break it off and propose to Sarah. Instead, Jake said he felt trapped and desperate. He knew he wanted to be with me, but he was scared of losing his family. So, in a moment of panic, Jake told his mother that I was pregnant. He thought that if Linda believed there was a baby involved, she would have to accept our relationship. He never intended for me to find out about the lie, thinking he could smooth things over with his mother over time. I sat there, stunned by Jake's confession. Part of me understood why he did it, but another part felt betrayed. I told Jake that while I loved him, I couldn't start our marriage with a lie. I told him I was calling off the engagement. Jake was devastated. He begged me to reconsider, promising to come clean to his mother and stand up to her once and for all, but I needed time to think. The next day, Jake called his parents and asked them to come over. When they arrived, Jake's father looked confused, while Linda looked smug, probably thinking Jake was going to announce our breakup. Instead, Jake took a deep breath and told them everything. He admitted to lying about the pregnancy and explained why he did it. He told them how much he loved me and that he wanted to marry me, with or without their blessing. Linda was furious. She started yelling about how Jake was throwing away his future and how Sarah was a much better match. But then, to everyone's surprise, Jake's father stepped in. He told Linda that enough was enough. He said he was tired of her interfering in Jake's life and trying to control his choices. He turned to Jake and told him that if he loved me and wanted to marry me, then he had his full support. Linda tried to argue, but Jake's father shut her down. He said that if Linda couldn't accept Jake's choice, then she would be the one cut off from the family, not Jake. The room fell silent. Linda looked shocked, then defeated. She slumped back in her chair, not saying another word. Jake turned to me then, his eyes full of hope and remorse. He apologized again for lying and promised that from now on, he would always be honest with me and stand up for our relationship. I was touched by Jake's courage in standing up to his parents and by his father's unexpected support, but I still felt hurt by the lie and unsure about our future. I told Jake and his parents that I needed some time to think. I loved Jake, but trust is crucial in a marriage, and ours had been shaken. I said I wasn't calling off the engagement completely, but I wanted to postpone the wedding until Jake and I had a chance to work through this issue, possibly with the help of a couples therapist. Jake agreed immediately, saying he would do whatever it took to regain my trust. His father nodded approvingly, while Linda remained silent. As Jake's parents left, his father pulled me aside. He apologized for not stepping in sooner and told me that he hoped I could forgive Jake. He said he could see how happy Jake was with me and that he truly believed we were good for each other. Over the next few weeks, Jake and I had many long, honest conversations about what had happened. We started seeing a couples therapist to work on our communication and trust issues. It hasn't been easy, but we're both committed to making our relationship stronger. Jake has also been working on setting better boundaries with his mother. Linda has been distant, but Jake's father has been making an effort to include me in family events and get to know me better. We're taking things one day at a time. The wedding is still on hold, but we're focusing on building a solid foundation for our future together. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can move past this and come out stronger on the other side. I'm grateful for all the advice and support I received from my last post. It gave me the courage to confront the situation head-on, even though the outcome wasn't what I expected. I've learned that relationships are complicated, and sometimes the path to happiness isn't straightforward, but I believe that with honesty, communication, and a willingness to work through problems together, Jake and I can build the loving, trusting partnership we both want. Thank you all for listening to my story. I'll update again once we've made a final decision about our future together.